Hi class, in this presentation we're going to continue our discussion of the endocrine system. We just finished talking about the hypothalamus, and now we're going to continue focusing on the pituitary gland. Our pituitary gland is known as the master gland, and it's really a two-in-one. As we look at our pituitary gland, we have the anterior pituitary, well, in front in the anterior location. Our anterior pituitary gland is going to have lots of blood capillaries associated with it, and it's going to have much more pigmentation associated with it. When we look at posterior pituitary gland, our posterior pituitary gland is not going to have as many blood vessels associated with it, and instead is going to be controlled primarily through axons traveling from neurons located within the hypothalamus. So as we're looking at the histology between these two, anterior pituitary gland is more pigmented, it has more blood vessels. Posterior pituitary gland is not as pigmented and does not have as many blood vessels, and instead is going to have more nervous cells associated with the nervous system. So as we look at the hormones associated with them, as we look at the anterior pituitary gland, we have follicle stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, adrenocorticotropic hormone, prolactin, and growth hormone. These are the ones that I primarily want you to focus on. From the hypothalamus, there are some hormones that will be released from the hypothalamus that help control the anterior pituitary gland. I want you to focus on gonadotropin releasing hormone. When we get to the reproductive system, we're going to spend a lot of time focusing on the gonadotropin releasing hormone. These other ones are worth mentioning, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time emphasizing them. And if you want to know more about what they do, just look at the name. Thyrotropin releasing hormone, well, causes the anterior pituitary gland to release the thyrotropins. If we look at the corticotropin releasing hormone, it's going to travel to the anterior pituitary gland and cause adrenocorticotropic hormone to be released. As we look at growth hormone releasing hormone, it's going to travel to the anterior pituitary gland and cause growth hormone to be released. So the name really tells you the function of those releasing hormones, those tropins from the hypothalamus, and we don't need to spend a lot of time focusing on them. So we have gonadotropin releasing hormone, which is significant for the reproductive system, and then we have those hormones of the anterior pituitary, those 6 hormones of the anterior pituitary, which you need to commit to memory. Now, as we're looking at the anterior pituitary gland, as we focus on those 6 hormones, we have FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. Follicle stimulating hormone is going to travel to the ovaries in females and trigger and stimulate the release of ovarian hormones. And within males, follicle stimulating hormone is going to trigger sperm production. As we look at luteinizing hormone, and I can't emphasize this enough, this is the hormone of ovulation. Luteinizing hormone causes ovulation in women. It's a common test question in my class. Look at all of those arrows I'm drawing next to the word ovulation. I want you to associate ovulation with luteinizing hormone. So, in females, luteinizing hormone triggers ovulation. In particular, the Graafian or mature follicle on the ovary will rupture, will burst, and release the secondary oocyte and then turn into the corpus luteum. And once it turns to the corpus luteum, that corpus luteum will then release progesterone, a hormone we'll talk about in more detail with the reproductive system. Let's talk about males. In males, luteinizing hormone, LH, is going to go to the testes and cause the testes to release testosterone. In particular, the interstitial or Leydig cells of the testes will be releasing the testosterone in response to luteinizing hormone. As we look at thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone is going to go to the thyroid gland and cause it to release thyroid hormone. T3 and T4 is a chemical cocktail typically referred to as thyroid hormone. As we look at ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, ACTH is going to travel from the anterior pituitary gland and go to the adrenal cortex. So as we look at this phrase here, adrenocorticotropic hormone, adrenal means for the adrenal glands. Where in the adrenal glands? It goes to the adrenal cortex, and tropic is a name that we haven't talked about, or we haven't talked about yet. Tropic hormones are going to cause other glands to release hormones. So the tropins are chemical messengers that cause their target tissues to release hormones. So ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, is going to travel to the cortex of the adrenal glands and cause the cortex of the adrenal glands to release more hormones. BIOL prolactin is a hormone that promotes lactation. And I need to emphasize this, that prolactin is going to cause the mammary glands to synthesize milk. It doesn't cause the mammary glands to release milk. That's going to be oxytocin, which triggers smooth muscle contractions all over our bodies. As we look at growth hormones, sometimes referred to as human growth hormone, HGH, this is going to be a hormone that stimulates mitosis and cellular differentiation in many different tissue types of the body. Bone, skeletal tissue, muscular tissue, tissues of the integumentary system, widespread growth of these tissues throughout the body. So, to review, here are those hormones that we've talked about from the anterior pituitary gland. Prolactin triggers lactation in the mammary glands. Thyroid stimulating hormone triggers the release of thyroid hormones from the thyroid glands. Luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone are going to travel to the gonads in males and females. ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, is going to travel to the adrenal cortex and cause corticoids to be released, and growth hormone is going to travel all over the body and cause fat, bone, and muscle and skin to just grow. As we look at the hormones of the posterior pituitary gland, these hormones are going to be produced within the hypothalamus, within the respective nuclei of the hypothalamus, and then transmitted via axons and transport vesicles to the posterior pituitary, and then stored and built up in the posterior pituitary gland. When they receive the correct signal or stimulus, they will then be released from the posterior pituitary gland into the bloodstream. As we focus on these two hormones, ADH, antidiuretic hormone, is going to increase water retention. When we think of a diuretic is a hormone that typically is going to cause people to urinate. Caffeine is my favorite diuretic. It's one of my favorite chemicals of all time. I enjoy drinking coffee, black coffee. And as we look at ADH, antidiuretic hormone, an antidiuretic is going to be a hormone that makes us not urinate as much. So diuretics make us urinate. Antidiuretics make us not urinate. So what ends up happening? ADH is going to increase water retention. In other words, we are going to reduce urine volume. So when we have a lot of ADH in our bloodstream, we are going to have very concentrated, very bright yellow urine. This is a hormone that helps to prevent or delay the effects of dehydration in our bodies. As we look at vasopressin, or another name for ADH is sometimes referred to as vasopressin, and it's called vasopressin because it causes vasoconstriction. It causes the vascular system to press or squeeze against the bloodstream to help elevate blood pressure when we're in a fluid loss environment or in danger of being dehydrated. We also have oxytocin, referred to as OT. Oxytocin is a hormone that has multiple functions in our bodies. It affects both the brain and the smooth muscle tissues of our bodies. So when somebody reaches sexual arousal and orgasm, there's going to be a lot of oxytocin released in their body. That's one of the reasons why oxytocin is referred to as the love hormone, because it promotes feelings of sexual satisfaction and allows for you to have lots of emotional bonding with whoever it is you're with when you're having lots of oxytocin being released into your body. When we think about the smooth muscle responses of oxytocin can cause the smooth muscle of the uterus to contract, help a child get out of the uterus during childbirth. Oxytocin could also cause the smooth muscle of the breast to contract, which is going to stimulate the flow of milk, or the let down of milk, as most individuals that work in that subdiscipline call it. So when we think of oxytocin, I want you to think of releasing milk, milk flowing out of the breast, or the letdown of milk. And this milk is going to be made by prolactin, and then oxytocin allows the woman to release the milk during breastfeeding. And then finally, oxytocin is going to help emotional bonding between mom and infant. So that while the mom is breastfeeding, not only does the physical stimulation of the areola around her nipple cause her to release oxytocin and have milk let down, she's also going to have some oxytocin released into her body to help her bond emotionally with the child. And this is just a random tangent that I feel like I should mention right now. A very recent phenomenon with a smartphone and streaming that we now have is that a lot of mothers are now spending time staring at their cell phones while they're breastfeeding. And an active area of research right now is to find out if the moms are emotionally bonding with their cell phones, their electronic devices, versus emotionally bonding with their children. And then also, are the children socially going to be impacted by moms staring at a cell phone screen instead of staring at the child's face during those very, very early formative stages while the child is breastfeeding? That's all we have for this discussion. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them on the class discussion board or shoot me an email. And as always, happy studies.